Hello and welcome to episode 30 of The Best Games, period. Here on the show, we talk about a new game every week and we decide, is it one of the best games, period? The name of the show is pretty self-explanatory, I guess. But this week we're going to be talking about Gone Home, a game from 2013 for PC. And I believe now it's also on PlayStation 4 as well. I'm Jack Gardner. This week, as always, or at least almost always, are my boon companions, Jeremy Brown and Daniel Jones. And we also have a special guest this week, Coley Jones.
Hi.
Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me on.
We're just trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Oh, ba-dum-bum. It's hard to do.
Yeah, so how's everyone doing today? How are things in the world of the Joneses and the Browns?
I got a new lawnmower.
I saw that. It's very shiny.
It is.
Probably
it
could have
was.
bought an Xbox One instead, but yeah.
I wanted to, but somebody said we needed to mow the lawn. Apparently,
Why can't somebody just make like dual things, like an Xbox One / lawnmower?
I think
they do that on. I think they do that on Pimp My Ride.
Probably.
That'll probably happen eventually. I mean, I feel like it has to.
Yeah.
They put the cell processor into refrigerators. They can make an Xbox with the lawnmower.
What does a refrigerator need with a cell processor?
So it can send you information about what food you need to stop at the grocery store and get. It knows what it's low on.
I mean, I guess, but wouldn't you also have to spend the time to put that information into the refrigerator?
No, it just scans it, and somehow it knows if you're low on milk or whatever. I don't know. I think it's highly ridiculous and unnecessary, but rich people will buy them, so.
That's true.
Yes.
I bet Bill Gates has like 10.
Yeah. He's probably got an Xbox lawnmower.
Probably.
Probably has an Xbox and everything.
I would if I was Bill Gates.
Would you have one in your gate if you were Bill Gates?
Probably.
I didn't know where to go from there. So, anyway, besides lawnmower-related Xbox news, how's everyone doing? How about you, Jeremy?
Well, busy, working, moving, painting, cleaning, moving, working.
Yeah, you're moving.
Well, first I have to move my girlfriend into her new house, and first we have to do a lot of work to that house.
Yeah.
Which is a perfectly fine house. It really doesn't need any work, but whatever. And then I gotta simultaneously move from my house into her old house. Her other house. Yeah.
Huh.
So.
A lot of moving going on. A lot of moving and shaking and baking and...
Which is hard when you don't ever have days off, so you have like a 3-hour window maybe per day to do it.
Yeah, but I do remember you told me you almost have additional help. So you might have more free time soon?
Hopefully.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah?
A couple months, month and a half.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, this actually happens for you this time rather than every other time that it has not.
Well, like as long as she passes the drug test, which I'm sure she did, so, and learns about Brother Van, then she can start.
What?
Yeah, what does that mean?
He's the guy that founded Deaconess Hospital, which eventually turned into Benefice Hospital, and it's a huge deal.
Okay.
Gotcha.
You have to know all about that before you can actually start working.
When you said Brother Van, for some reason I had a mental image of like an anthropomorphic van that's like the mascot of your hospital.
It seems like a character out of like a BioShock game or something, to be honest. But,
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. and there's some like sister somebody or another, and people do care about her, but not near as much.
People usually don't care about the sisters so much.
She's just the one that did the actual work. Brother Van was like, I have this idea. There's no hospital. Let's build one.
Sister, go build it.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
What about you, Jack? You coming down from your E3 high?
Sort of. I've mostly been cleaning up other people's writing after E3 and, following up with emails and stuff. So I'm like just now getting around to actually writing the sizable number of interviews that I did during E3 with a few indie developers who may or may not be coming onto the show later on in a couple weeks. So
Coley, other than getting a new lawnmower so Daniel can mow the lawn, what have you been up to?
Well, I can't say where I work, but we had a bomb threat at work today.
Oh,
Yeah?
jeez.
Yeah.
Was it a serious bomb threat?
It was
or...
it was serious. There was
Ooh.
the guy was arrested on the premises.
Jeez.
Yep. It was big doings.
So did he have any actual implementations to be able to bomb?
There was a backpack and
Apparently something in it.
Something in it.
Well, that's pretty dang scary.
And there was a call saying he was in there and he had a bomb. So somebody else called to say he was there with a bomb. So it was insane. We have a couple different sites, and I literally went to this site to drop something off, and there was fire trucks and policemen and ambulance, and I couldn't get in, and they were telling me it was evacuated.
That's scary.
All the staff had to leave all their personal stuff in their cars and leave. So then I started driving people home because they couldn't get home otherwise.
Right.
So
that's freaky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it got cleared and nobody got hurt and it was fine and he was arrested, but it was intense.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, that was my day. No big deal.
I kind of feel like healthcare centers are going to be the new targets.
Yeah, I was talking to her about that today. I don't understand why that seems to be the new trend.
I'm not sure. And even at the site that I work at last week,
because this wasn't the same site that she normally.
It's the same company, but we have four
same
sites.
Company, different site.
But the site I normally work at got a phone call last week. There was a guy on the phone with the receptionist. He was not happy, and in the background, his friend said, "Tell him you're going to go in there with your gun." So then the police got called to his house.
See, they should be arrested for that too. That's
yeah.
They went to his house. Yeah, the police were at the site and everything. So that was 2, and then on Monday. When we went to pick up Quinn from daycare, we didn't know that her daycare was on lockdown until we got home.
What?
And got an email that her daycare had been on lockdown because...
When we got there.
there.
I mean, they might not have still been on lockdown when we got there, but
it happened that day.
They had taken the kids inside. The kids usually go out around 3 o'clock to go outside, 3:30, and they go outside and they spend the rest of the day outside just playing.
Till you pick them up.
Till you pick them up. Well, they were outside, and I guess somebody, Jeremy, you know, that gun and fishing place is right there, right next door.
Yeah, right behind it.
So some guys, a couple of teenagers, I guess, were in the parking lot with paintball guns, and the teachers saw them, and they had masks on, like they were putting on their paintball masks on. And I guess the teachers saw them, and there's different reports, apparently, like they were approaching the playscape, or they weren't, I don't know. And they called in...
The cops.
They called the cops on these kids.
And put the school on lockdown.
And put the school on lockdown.
Well,
so it seems like a bit of an overreaction.
But
I suppose better safe than sorry.
Yeah. Maybe that place should have a policy if you're going to come in there and play paintball, get dressed and whatnot inside.
It's normally closed on Mondays, and I guess they had permission from the owner, so the owner feels really bad that this happened because it's not normally open on Mondays. So, I mean, I think her daycare handled it really well, and somebody just saw a long gun, and with everything that's going on in the world, I'd rather have them put him on lockdown than say, oh, it might not be anything.
Well, that on top of masked people, that were
Right?
probably wearing that $15 Amazon body armor that isn't anything, but it looks bad from a distance. Right. Yeah, no, I get it.
So everything comes in 3, so hopefully that's my 3. That's like 2.
Hopefully that's it.
2 gun and 1 bomb threat. I am hopefully done. So.
Yeah.
Well, geez. And we decided to open this episode with Xbox lawnmowers. Good job, us.
I get nervous at work about the people that work in the front office, the business office, because they are like just totally exposed. And they're the ones that have to tell people they owe money or their insurance didn't cover things.
Mm-hmm. Jeez.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend happens to be the first one, like the only one you can actually see when you walk in, because the rest of them are kind of covered by cubicles at least.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah. They do have a panic button, but, I mean, yeah. Well,
Anyway, let's move away from awful shooting-related incidents
Sure.
for this video game podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Are you sorry you asked what was going on for me? 'Cause-
Yep.
you know,
yeah.
But you did something else this week.
What did I do this week?
You played Gone Home.
I did play Gone Home. I did.
Hey, I played Gone Home this week, too.
Yeah.
Actually, last week.
I am not really. I haven't played very many video games at all.
Especially not first-person games.
So I played Journey, which I actually finished, Jeremy.
somebody asked you.
Right? So I actually played through Journey. I've played Bastion.
Yeah.
I tried to play Uncharted, but I got nauseous. I tried.
Oh, man, how did you get through Gone Home, then?
It
Well,
was
it
difficult.
was
It was difficult. And he was laughing at me the whole time. And then I've played a little bit of The Last of Us, but got sick with that too.
Yeah.
I didn't find the control, like any of the controls intuitive. It did not work with what I was trying to do.
She did not. She couldn't grasp moving the left thumbstick and right thumbstick simultaneously. It was pretty comical. She was just staring at the floor half the time.
I've Gone
Just-
Home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out how to move. And I'm like, well, it would help if you looked up. But she did actually eventually. You eventually kind of got a better grasp of the controls, and you were
Yeah.
able to like point it at things and
And
interact
look at
with
them.
stuff.
Yes.
That's actually a really unique perspective, because I mean, most of the time when we talk about games, we take it for granted that people have already gotten over that learning curve, because it's a pretty universal curve that I feel kind of stymies a lot of people.
Yeah.
2 joysticks is a lot to handle for people who don't typically play a whole lot of controller-based.
It takes some
things.
getting used to. I've said it time and time again on this show. It does.
It's just a coordination thing that you have to like retrain your brain
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
It didn't feel natural. It was really hard for me. So it made it frustrating because I knew where I wanted to go, but to get there made things difficult.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a tutorial or anything. I just had to like fumble through and press things and figure out how to like get through it.
If you do it more often, it gets easier.
Yeah.
But do it with different games.
What, you mean
maybe.
I have to play Gone Home more often?
No.
Because I'm all set.
So did you play all the way through Gone Home?
Yeah, made it to the end.
Did you take the time to read all the notes and check out all the dossier type things and find the secret hiding places and
Yes.
all that? Or did you
Yep.
just... Okay.
No, yeah. I explored, I think, almost all the house. And I made sure to leave drawers and cabinets open so I knew I'd already gone there. So it was-
Hey, now that's a veteran move.
I know, it was smart. I did not think to do that, and I kept, like, I had stepped away and wasn't watching her play for a while, and then I came back and I was like, "Did you go through that?" And she's like, "No, because it's closed." I'm like, "Oh, all right, there you go."
So
That's how I was able to keep track of where I had been.
So let's back up a little bit first. What is Gone Home?
Yeah, well, I don't know. How would you describe Gone Home, having just played it?
disappointing.
No,
I'm not supposed to jump off
in
there
like
right
a
away.
non-critical way. How would you just?
That's the end of the show,
objectively
folks. We'll see you next week for BioShock. Like, are you talking
and podcast? I just wrecked it all.
Jack? Are you talking genre, story-wise? What are you looking for here?
Let's give like a general overview of what Gone Home is before we kind of dive into our personal takes.
Yeah.
Do you want anybody in particular to do that?
How about you? Because you're talking.
When don't I? Okay, so Gone Home is a game, like Jack said, that came out in 2013, developed by a very small studio, Fullbright, I believe. They actually all moved into the same house and had their office in the basement so that they could make this game on the cheap. It was very, very well received. Critically, did very well. Commercially, did very well in spite of being released only on PC at first for a $20 price tag. It's a first-person kind of adventure exploration game. You play the role of a girl named Caitlin. She just comes home from, I think, studying abroad or doing something overseas, and she goes into this old family house, her house, but it's been in the family for years. Finds this kind of mysterious note on the door from her sister, Samantha, that says, don't bother investigating what happened to me. And it's got this, eerie music, this kind of tone to it, like something dreadful is going on.
Well, and she comes home during a lightning storm.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dark and stormy night. Yes, it was all of those things.
And there's like a history with the uncle that had previously owned the home.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
she'd
this,
never been there.
Right.
They moved in while she was
the family moved in while she was gone. Yeah. So she goes in, and of course, the first thing you do when you see a note like that is investigate. And she kind of goes through the house, rummages through things, finds out some facts about her mom, her dad, her sister, her uncle. There's this real mysterious thing with her uncle. I mean, he seems like he was kind of a creepy dude.
People call it the psycho house.
Yeah, there were hidden doorways and potential torture and abuse chambers.
I think it is implied that he did abuse.
Yes, the dad
them.
Or somebody, like
Yeah,
her dad
like,
or her uncle or somebody. Yeah,
I don't think it was their dad. I think it was the creepy, crazy uncle.
but I
didn't think it was her dad.
No. He abused her dad, not.
Oh.
Okay.
Not her dad abused people. And there's a lot of cool, interesting things you can find out by reading the notes, checking out the photos. Some pretty cool music comes from it. So you're just doing this whole exploring thing, and ultimately...
And just to remind people, sorry, before we get into it, the best games period, we always spoil whatever we're talking about. So,
correct.
Spoilers if you haven't played Gone Home.
But the main concept is she's trying to find out what happened to her sister. So she goes through the house and just finds all the clues, and eventually she does find out what happens to her sister. I don't know if we want to reveal that right now, or as we get closer to the end of the show, because whatnot.
Let's talk about it later. I feel like
I think that
takes on it.
Yeah, I think that part will be best served for later. So it's got a really neat atmosphere, a really neat setting, some cool. I mean, a lot of detail in the story that's behind it.
Yeah, and also in the environment in general. Like, this is the kind of game where you can actually zoom in on notes and read what is written on them. Like, little details like VHS tapes that, the family used to record old episodes of the X-Files when they were on TV. And they're all labeled and stuff. That's a total 90s thing.
And little cassettes that you could put in the tape player to listen to music.
All right, but can I just say, as somebody who doesn't play video games, I had no idea that you could play them. Like, I looked at them and I put them back down, but nowhere does it say put in the thing and it will play until he's like, you can play that, I'm like, how would I know that? How would I know that?
Well, that's just because you got to get good.
I guess so.
It's like
the
Dark
Souls adventure games.
Gone Home is just like Dark Souls. I've heard that many times.
One of the first great details that I noticed is you walk into the family room, like right when you get in, and you see that family portrait that's actually a pretty decent family portrait. And it's just got that terrible name plaque on it, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. But if you do all the exploring, you eventually find out why that is. They did a great job with that type of stuff.
Yeah, like, I feel like the real star of the game is the house in a lot of ways, because they put so much time into it. The house holds the stories of all the different characters, and even though there is like this really well done voiceover for a lot of Sam's journals that you find, or things that trigger readings from her journal, like the house has all of that information in it. You know, it's the little crumpled up notes you find everywhere, the little things in the nooks and crannies that I'm sure we all have in our houses or the places we live in.
Yeah. So
Miranda Lambert sang a very nice song about it.
She did?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
There's a song. There's the song, "The House That Built Me." Come on. Am I the only Miranda Lambert fan in this?
I've
group?
never heard of that.
Wait, is Miranda the country singer or the?
Yeah, the country singer. She's one of the few modern country singers I actually like.
Well, I get her confused sometimes with the other Lambert that sings.
Adam Lambert?
No, Mary. The one that is
Mary Lambert. Yeah.
Are they
You
related?
could say that Miranda Lambert is a Mary Lambert
Maybe.
sometimes when she's happy.
By the way, there's people either shooting off fireworks and or guns in the background, so I apologize for that in advance.
We've had enough gun-related stuff. Cut it out.
Well, no, the last one sounded more like a gun than a firework. That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, no, okay. Anyway,
You learn something new every day.
you didn't know that I liked Miranda Lambert?
No, I'm not sure this is going to work
I
out.
like
Anyway.
Miranda Lambert.
So where do you fall on the whole Miranda, Blake, Gwen Stefani thing? I mean, what?
What are you talking about?
These
I
are
don't know
fun
what
things.
you're talking about either.
I do, Jeremy.
You're just going off on
Thank
all
you,
these
Coley.
non sequiturs.
I got you back, Jeremy.
Yeah,
Non sequiturs from the non sequitur.
just
You
have no,
started it.
so you have no
That's exactly.
you have no voice in this conversation.
That's fine.
But
I am so lost. Anyway, video games.
Yes. So Gone Home. That's basically the premise of Gone Home.
Right.
It's
You did a very nice job summing it up.
You did.
yeah. Thank you. Every once in a
liked
while,
that
I
you
get
could-
lucky.
open drawers and cabinets that didn't have anything in it, but they still had stuff in it. Like, it wasn't like you could open everything,
Right.
and there would just be stuff
could
in it, but
interact
there was
with
no
everything.
clues in that drawer, but you could still open everything.
Wow.
I thought that was a nice touch.
You really haven't played many video games.
I have not. I'm very good at MLB. I can get home runs. That's-
No,
You got
it-
one home run.
It is a cool, nice touch, and for a developer that small that didn't have a big budget, it's a nice touch. It really is.
Well, they had the idea for building this digital house and reconstructing it from the ground up, and they followed through on that idea to their credit. Like you said, you can open up all of those cabinets and drawers and doors and everything, and a lot of the time there's not going to be anything in there that's really that important to interact with. Maybe a few things you can pick up and like closely examine, but it's
Right.
not going to be super important. But that kind of helps to build the illusion that you're in a lived-in space, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I have a lot of crap in my drawers it's just random junk I haven't thrown away.
Yeah.
And this family is a lot like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
One of the criticisms I recall when the game, the few criticisms that most people had with it, was a lot of people thought that was just filler to make it take more time, because it's not a very long game. I still like that part, though.
I mean,
It is a big house. Like, I get it.
yeah. They wanted it to feel like a real place, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that makes it seem less like the house was just built for the game, and more like the house is there, and you just happen to be exploring it.
Well, and that's what you do when you come home to a house you've never been in and find a
Right.
weird note. You don't just automatically know which drawers and cupboards and files and whatnot have the clues you need in them. You have to I mean, you got to dig through it all.
And I will say that I do appreciate the character development that they did in this game. Even if, and we'll get into it later, even if I didn't really care for where the story went, I felt like there was some interesting character stuff in there. And the way that it's presented in that you're discovering everything through journal entries or newspaper clippings or pictures or letters or whatever, is really interesting because it's a completely new way of telling a story and developing characters that other mediums don't really do in the same way.
I mean, I don't know that I would say it's completely new, because I feel like a lot of games have done very similar things. I feel like where Gone Home innovated was in following through with this space and like fleshing it out and keeping it small, because there are other adventure games where you can walk around and have, you know, people narrate things to you. Like a game that comes to mind that I thought is really good, but I don't think we'd ever talk about it on here is The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which is there's a lot of similarities between that and Gone Home.
But this Gone Home came first. I don't know that Vanishing of Ethan Carter would exist without Gone Home.
Or you could talk about Dear Esther. That's probably, I mean, in terms of what influenced Gone Home, Dear Esther, 100%. That's kind of the first walking simulator. People use the term walking simulator very in a derogatory manner, but now it's kind of just become the genre of adventure game, I guess.
But Dear Esther was very different. Dear Esther was just a person talking to you the entire time. You weren't uncovering the story the same way. I don't know. I guess I
feel
disagree.
like this is just a much better implementation of that same basic concept that was in Dear Esther.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
And Dear Esther's a lot more linear, whereas, you know, Gone Home allows you to a certain extent to kind of explore things in your own way. I know all the times that I've played it, I seem to go to the left and kind of go down that hallway first. But you can take different approaches through the house, I think. Right?
It reminds me a lot of Firewatch, like watching Dan play Firewatch.
Yeah.
Gone Home inspired Firewatch.
Except Firewatch was a good game.
Okay, so now we're going to get into this part of the show, I think, where we talk about our thoughts on...
Before I say that, we were talking about Dear Esther. I think Dear Abby should be a video game. Where, like, you just take 15 or 20 Dear Abby articles and have to play them out through an interactive experience.
Little vignettes.
Yeah. I mean, Gone Home kind of could have been a Dear Abby video game.
They have to follow through on your advice.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. You buy your brother's fiance that you can't stand a terrible wedding gift, and then you have to apologize for it.
I actually really like that idea for a video game. That'd be great. I'd play that.
It'd be neat. It'd be cool on like iOS or something.
Yeah. Kind of like a Papers, Please, but for random social
if Goat
situations.
And Tractor Simulator can garner an audience, then... Yeah.
I was picturing something like Stanley Parable.
Gone Home does remind me of Firewatch in a lot of ways, and I don't know what...
Well, I haven't played Firewatch, but that's a walking simulator, right?
It is.
People have called it that. Yeah.
And, you know, I guess when it comes to conclusions, a lot of people felt that was not fulfilling, where I was fine with it, and the opposite of Gone Home. So I don't know. I don't know. I can't put my finger on the difference, but...
That's the thing that that I'm conflicted about, is because when I first played Gone Home, I did not like that ending, and I still don't really like that ending. But I but the same as you, I liked the ending of Firewatch, and I liked that the ending of Firewatch was kind of just about people. It wasn't about anything supernatural. Like, they kind of misled you the whole time, very much like Gone Home does, in that, you know, you think something weird's happening the entire time, but it turns out that really it's much more mundane than that. Still something kind of extraordinary and awful and tragic did happen in Firewatch, but you don't really know that. I'm gonna keep this vague so as not to spoil Firewatch, but you don't really know that for most of the game. And the same happens in Gone Home, but I think the difference is that, like, Firewatch develops those characters better, and you develop, like, a relationship as Henry. You develop a relationship with Delilah, and that's what's important in Firewatch. And that was satisfying to me, whereas passively observing the relationship between Sam and, what's her name? No, her girlfriend.
Lonnie.
That wasn't satisfying to me. It just felt like...
I get what you're saying. I think that's it. I think that's the main difference. And
see, I get what you're saying too, but I have to say this because the first time I played Gone Home, I did not like it, and I think over the last few years I've discovered more of an appreciation for it now that I've gone back and played it.
Oh, agree. 3 years after, we all railed on this game after it came out. It's on record. There's no denying it. I don't dislike it near as much as I used to. In fact, I appreciate a lot about it. Yeah,
I think the misunderstanding... I think fundamentally I just misunderstood it when it first came out. Because, like you just kind of pointed out with Firewatch, as you said, is kind of more about the player's relationship with...
Delilah.
Through the character that they're playing. I don't know what his name is. Henry. In Gone Home, though, I think it's less about the player's relationship with any of that stuff. It's more so about the discovery and just kind of learning about these characters through their space.
Right.
And I feel like that's a much more indie concept. Like, I don't think it would fly as like a... I guess what I'm trying to say is Gone Home is much more of a thing that can only exist as a game, whereas when you're talking about a really in-depth story that's, emotionally charged between Henry and Delilah in Firewatch, that could exist as something else, I guess.
Yep. You're totally right. Yeah.
Gone Home is more about the discovery of this family and uncovering this story, and less about Katie's relationship with it and more about kind of us discovering along with her, I guess.
Katie's mostly just an avatar. She's not really much of a character in the story.
Right. Yeah, it's not about Katie. It's about everybody else in her family.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's unfair to compare the two because they're doing very different things. They're going for very different things.
I guess what I meant by comparing them, and I didn't get to this, I just kind of rambled, was that the ending of Gone Home takes a more mature approach, and it kind of upends our expectations as gamers because we always expect something extraordinary to happen and something, supernatural or whatever. It's a video game. That has to happen, right? Like, that's just what we're used to having happen. And it takes the approach of, no, like, this is just an ordinary story about ordinary people going through things that to them seem very important and are extraordinary in terms of their lives. And Firewatch does the same thing. So I guess what I was trying to say is that I feel conflicted because I appreciate that in Firewatch, so I'm not sure why I have trouble appreciating it as much in Gone Home.
Well, I think one slight difference is in Gone Home, I feel like the game gave you the sense that there was going to be more, and it was going to be more mysterious, and it was going to be something like X-Files, like neat and unique, and you just were waiting to find out what that was. In Firewatch, you always kind of had a gist, and again, I'm not going to spoil things because that game is pretty new, but there were clues that led you to believe certain things, and the one big mystery was resolved, and the other little mystery was kind of left open-ended at the end. And Gone Home kind of had those two big mysteries as well. What's the creepy thing about this house, and what happened to Sam? And the creepy thing about the house was never really fully resolved. And what happened to Sam was just so okay, that's fine. I mean,
yeah, I feel like it's much more. I feel like the reveal in Gone Home is supposed to be a kind of a shocking reveal that, nothing supernatural or special is going on. It's supposed to be shocking in its mundanity,
right? Sure.
In how mundane it actually is, and how everyday it is.
But I was speaking more to Daniel's point, where gamers just expected this huge, crazy thing. They said they did set us up for that.
That's why it was shocking.
Yeah, by the atmosphere, the ambiance, all that other stuff.
And I think that when it came out, that kind of took all of us aback. And I think that might be why a lot of us, at least part of the reason why some of us,
I think
disliked it so much or railed on it so much.
Right, but not being a gamer, I had the same expectations of the game, just playing it. And the end, I was like, are you kidding me? So I didn't, and I don't have the expectations from playing games. I just had it from, the atmosphere and what you were going through and all that stuff. I mean, at one point I was playing it and I heard a knock in the house and I jumped.
Yeah, she was freaked out.
A knock in our house because I was waiting for something in the game to happen. So I was already on edge, and then it was like, oh, okay.
You threw the controller on the floor.
I did throw the controller at the end of the game. And just on the couch, not on the floor.
And personally, being completely honest, back in 2013 when this game came out, the reviews and the love it got from, essentially every gaming website, every gaming journalist, was a little over the top. It really was. In my opinion, and of course they can write reviews and do things however they want, but so I had some pretty high expectations, which I usually try not to fall into, especially when it comes to journalists and people that write reviews.
Yeah,
and just when I finished it, I was like, that's it. That's the big deal.
Yeah, I think people not freaked out, but almost oversold it on the fact of how almost, I'm not going to say almost entirely, because there are, as we've said many times so far in this podcast, there are a lot of really great elements to Gone Home. I think people oversold it slightly when it came out, or gushed over it so much just because there aren't really games like this.
Right.
Like there aren't mundane games. Like, or at least there weren't before Gone Home came out.
But not to give away the actual ending.
Well, you can.
Oh, yeah. We can do that now.
You can.
But I was just thinking, do you think part of why it was so acclaimed or spoken about in 2013 is that there weren't games at that time, and I don't know if there has been since because I don't know a lot of games, that have tackled homosexuality and running away with a girlfriend and leaving your life to go be with that person? Could that be part of it?
I mean, I think that plays into it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, still today, there aren't a lot of games that tackle those issues either.
Right. So you have this huge build-up, and it may not have been what you wanted as an ending, but still at that time, and to have it be in a video game, that maybe is a little bit shocking.
But
yeah, I think what I was trying to get at is more there aren't games that are slice of life kind of things like this, and I think Now there are a little bit there are more there's more stuff like that. There are more games coming out. Like recently there was Revolution 1979, which is basically the slice of life of a photographer during the Iranian Revolution.
Yeah.
Super interesting game. Recommend checking it out, by the way. But up till that point, it was, 2013 was the year of like The Last of Us and BioShock Infinite and all these other like hyper realistic but over the top games at the same time. I mean, The Last of Us, for as realistic as it is at the end of the day about killer fungus that make people go crazy. And BioShock Infinite is about a city flying in the sky.
Yeah.
Run by racists and bigots. And then you have Gone Home, which is about a girl coming home from vacation and walking through an unfamiliar house looking to figure out what happened to her little sister. And nothing weird happens. Like nothing supernatural, nothing weird happens. It's just a slightly uncommon situation. And that's the weirdest part about the game.
Yeah.
And I think in the world of video games, there's not a whole lot of stuff like that. Whereas in movies, you'll sometimes have indie films that are just, this is like a week in the life of some guy named Brian or something.
Yeah, and I think my problem with Gone Home at the time was that I was expecting a story that was satisfying in the same way that, you know, a good story in a movie or a book is satisfying. And I don't think that's necessarily what Gone Home was trying to do. Because I remember at the time making comparisons, saying it was just a silly teenage drama in disguise. And sometimes it sort of feels like that. Because the story just isn't... It just seems kind of naive and adolescent. I don't know. And
like at the same time, like you can argue that that's kind of the point because the characters who are doing the naive and adolescent things are naive adolescents.
But I guess the plot just didn't go anywhere. Like it was like if this was a movie or a TV show, an episode of a TV show or something, I don't think I would have been super satisfied. But then just thinking about what it actually is, that's not necessarily what it's even going for in the first place. It's going for something completely different from a movie or a TV show or a book. So, divorced from my expectations of what a story actually is, it's very interesting in that way. And it's interesting that it can make me rethink what a story should be or could be. And so I have developed an appreciation for it in that. And watching Coley play through it was actually eye-opening for me because, like, now I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, actually, I think I really appreciate this game a lot. I might actually like it now. As much as I do have some issues with it, I'll just say it right now. I think I'll probably say that my vote will probably be that this is the best games period.
I guess to be clear, the ending of Gone Home is that you find out, because we haven't really explicitly said yet, you find out your sister ran away with her high school girlfriend. And that she's telling you, you know, don't come looking for us. You know, I'll come back when kind of I'm ready to come back.
Yeah. Which you can totally understand why she would run away.
Yeah, I mean,
the family did not seem completely stable.
No, and I think the game kind of sets it up where if you do root around and like kind of look for clues more, there is that setup of the family having that history of abuse from that crazy uncle.
Yeah.
And I think that you can kind of read between the lines and see that kind of has led to a destabilized family.
Yeah.
And you can also kind of see that how this girl has struggled with her sexuality because of the pressures and expectations of her family, kind of trying to force her into relationships with guys she doesn't really want to know about her, that she only hung out with because they had cool video games.
Right.
Well, I think also living up to Katie, because you see throughout the house, like, Katie's trophies, and you see, like, all this, stuff from that Katie's done, and so she's trying to live up to that, too.
Right. Katie's the golden child.
Right.
Who's always been good at everything.
Right. Because she even says, like, oh, Katie's off doing this, and I can't go into the city by myself, and I have a car, so I'm going to go anyway. There's, like, this teenage angst.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think when it came out, to your point, Coley, like, I did have this feeling of letdown at the end of it, just because I was like, oh, this is just a Romeo and Juliet story.
Right.
Of two kids running off and doing something stupid, and I'm upset because there's no catharsis at the end of Katie finding her sibling or going after her sibling. It just kind of ends with that revelation and the game is done. And so I did feel like it was kind of I want to say like almost a sitcom-y type script situation.
Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. Like it wasn't. And so I'm still kind of on the fence, because on the one hand I can see where you're coming from, Daniel, about it being it not going for that. And I can see that, but on the other hand, I'm torn because that central premise seems very not even premise. It's just one of the central parts of the story just seems so hokey to me. Like, and it's not something that I relate well to as a person. Like, I never had that kind of Romeo and Juliet thing in school, or that intensive feelings that I would throw my life away and run away with somebody.
You never thought about running away?
No,
as a kid?
I mean, I had a pretty solid family life as a kid, so this is...
So,
I didn't have a rebellious phase.
I made the end of my road probably like 10 times before turning back.
So, I missed the last few minutes of this conversation, and I'm sure somebody already touched on what I was going to say. But the last thing I heard was Coley talking about the, being 2013 and video games, not really touching on this subject.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should give my thoughts on that or if I'll just be repeating what others have said.
I was just kind of going through that myself, and I was just saying, it seems kind of like a sitcom-y scenario that is... I'm wondering if it's actually as good as people think or thought it was, or if it is deemed good because it's good for a game.
Didn't we refer to it as Dawson's Creek back in the day?
Yeah, we did.
So just real quick, and if this has already been said, Jack, just cut it out. I think it's cool that video games tackle any sort of topic, no matter what it is. And at the time, I guess early on in the game, it was pretty clear that Sam and Lonnie had a romantic relationship. So that didn't really surprise me. And I don't care. I still don't care. If you want to be gay, straight, whatever, it's not a big deal to me. It never has been. I don't think it should be shamed. I don't think it should be overly celebrated. I don't think it should be anything. But I get there's also that oppression. What got to me during that game was like that was the big reveal at the end, which was like, duh. I mean,
I think right. That's what I was landing too. I was like, so I already know this. Like, this is not a big, like, this is okay. I figured this out a long time ago. I didn't learn anything new, so she ran away with her. Like, it wasn't... I don't know. I guess I just expected an ending.
I just wanted to know where all those creepy crawl spaces led to and what really happened in that house. That's what was intriguing to me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I was just going to say, in 2013, when it came out, is when Last of Us came out, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So, and that had Ellie and Riley.
Well, that wasn't until... Oh, look at you. You're just trying to show off now, aren't you? Look at you. That wasn't until the following year. That was the DLC for The Last of Us.
I tried.
That was sexy. Sorry. God, it's hot in here.
But, yeah, I remember we compared it to an episode of Dawson's Creek, and to an extent, I'm still struggling with that, because is it to the question I asked, is it good by itself, or is it good for a game? Because that I'm still torn on. What do you guys think? Because
I don't think you can look at it as divorced from the concept of video game, and I think that's why it's good. It expressly uses the fact that it is a video game to tell a story in a way that only video games can. And yes, it's not the first game to do that, but it's the first game to tell a story that was so human and so mundane in that
Which,
way.
ironically, is what makes it so special.
Right.
And I get that. I get that. And do you feel like if it came out... Yeah, I mean, there's still obviously a long way for the game industry to go as a whole towards better representation. And I say that because I can't think of any games off the top of my head that have that kind of portray a homosexual relationship at the heart of their story, other than Gone Home.
Well, I mean, Dragon Age, kind of.
Yeah, but caveat. Other than games where you can play your own avatar.
Yeah.
You can kind of custom create that. Which, also to be fair, that's pretty much BioWare is the only one that's really on top of those kinds of relationships.
I'm not saying it's like mainstream. I was just trying to think of an
Fable
example.
and Fable 2 and Fable 3, you could get married to
true.
same sex.
Yeah. I like the choice, honestly. I think
I know it had nothing to do with this. I'm just mentioning those games were progressive.
Was Fable? I think Fable 2 might have been the first one, right?
I never played Fable 1, but Fable 2 and definitely 3 for sure.
I played Fable 1 all the way through. I'm pretty sure you could get married to anybody you wanted.
Well, I remember one of those, one or two, that it was a big deal that you could do that.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it wasn't.
I think it might have been 2, because I remember that being a thing.
Okay. I'm probably wrong.
I'm just trying to throw out there that I think that it is good that this game exists, and I can see why it's one of the best. I think it's one of the best games, period. I'm very conflicted on it.
Wow.
I guess I just have to come down on it, because it's... As far as it's the game that coined the term walking simulator as like a genre name, it's the game that a lot of walking simulators have taken cues from like Firewatch to The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, and both those games are really great.
To Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which I also really liked.
Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. So there are lots of games that have taken inspiration from it. It does things with its digital space that no other games really did or really have done since. And
okay,
I mean, I think that house has probably become one of the most iconic houses since
Amityville,
Resident Evil in the video games.
In video games, yeah.
And I feel like, in terms of representation, it shows us just how far the game industry has come and how exceedingly far it has to come yet.
Okay.
Before it actually gets, decent representation, or at least proportional representation for LGBTQ peoples. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I was just like, I could get over the Dawson's Creek-ness of part of that narrative, and I think Daniel's right. Part of it is that it's naive and adolescent, but that's also kind of the point. And also, there's no other games that really do that.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeremy,
Well,
I think you were...
maybe not before that. I think like Life is Strange does that to a degree.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think Life is Strange could exist without Gone
And
Home.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you were kind of out when I think I said this, but I already put my cards on the table and said that I do think now that this is a best game period. And I haven't done a complete 180 on Gone Home, but watching Coley play it again and just thinking more about it, I really respect the things that it does and the ways it does them, and I hope that even more games take cues from it. And I'd like to see more just human, real stories told in video games that don't involve saving the universe or killing zombies.
Oh, I hate both you guys. See, here's the thing. I actually agree, and I wanted to be the hero that said this. That I flip flopped. Damn you!
Really?
I don't. I am too. I will wholeheartedly say I don't think it's a great game. I don't think it's like amazing as far as a game, but I appreciate it. And I appreciated it back in the day. But the things that I appreciated about it, I appreciate even more so now. And I was mostly shell shocked in 2013, just at the love it received. I'll never be one of those guys that thinks it's like a top 10 game period, probably even a top 50 game period. But it's cheap now. It's accessible on a lot of platforms.
I will say that in terms of price, you mentioned that, so real quick, I think part of the backlash we had against it was that it was so seemingly expensive versus the amount of what we perceived at the time as the amount of game you get.
Yeah.
Right. $20 for 2 hours.
Yeah. And
was kind of how we saw it.
Yeah.
I beat the game in under an hour the first time I played it. Yeah. So I was...
And I do think it's inspired a lot of other similar types of... I hate the term walking simulator, but, exploration, adventure type games that just are unique in their own way. I think people should play this game. I think they should play it and judge for themselves. And by me saying, again, caveat, it's one of the best games, period, does not necessarily mean it's one of my favorite games of all time. And I don't think that it's, groundbreaking in all these different ways that other people made it out to be. I think it tackled some very tough issues. I got the utmost respect for Fullbright for the way that they developed and put this game out there. And, it's cool. It's unique. It's intense. And sometimes you just don't, my own expectations let me down back in the old days. Sometimes it takes some time to come to terms with that.
Yeah, I think that's the backlash we had against it, I think, was kind of the same backlash a lot of people had against it to even coin the term walking simulator in the first place.
Right.
And it's that it defied what, either formally or informally, what we thought video games were.
Mm-hmm.
And so we weren't really ready to, I guess, accept that games were bigger.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty excited for the new Fullbright game. So.
Yeah.
Tacoma, yeah.
Yeah, Tacoma.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about Tacoma that I see is that they're trying to make it a little more interactive. They actually had basically re-revealed Tacoma at E3 this year because it went through some changes. They originally had it just as kind of a passive tour through the space station, watching these kind of holograms, and then they decided they needed to add some interaction with the holograms and with what was happening at the space station, and I find that to be very interesting, and that makes me a lot more interested in that game in general.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, I guess...
So, wow, what the hell? How'd that happen?
I know, right?
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that it went down this way. We actually had an entire episode on our old podcast where we just railed on this game.
Yeah, and we just railed on it on several episodes. It was kind of a running joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the kind of game where I'm going to put it in all the time and play it and have fun with it, because it's not a fun game. It just isn't. Gone Home isn't a fun game, but it is not supposed to be a fun game. And I think I've grown to appreciate games that aren't necessarily meant to be fun.
They did everything right, in my opinion, except for the ending, which I can't fault the entire game for that. I mean, not well, now. And most people like the ending. I just wasn't shocked by it,
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think the ending was supposed to be shocking or anything like that. Some things just don't. Some stories just don't have that catharsis that we necessarily want. Mm-hmm. But that isn't always a bad thing. So I just think,
and I
think it was doing untraditional storytelling, and it did a lot of things not other games don't have the guts to do.
But many games have had those sort of ambiguous sorts of endings since then. I mean, The Last of Us did it.
I feel like 2013 was kind of the year that kicked that off, though, between Gone Home and The Last of Us.
And I don't think The Last of Us waited for Gone Home to come out, and then they're like, hey, let's do this. I mean, obviously, it just is a coincidence, but...
There are kinds of... There are a lot of those coincidental...
Although that game did get delayed for, 3 months, so...
Well, I mean, there are a lot of those coincidences with things that come out sometimes, like when Titanfall came out. There was Titanfall, and then there was Call of Duty, and they all had wall running stuff in them. Yeah. That was just a coincidence, but... Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like that.
So, wow, yeah, I'm actually pretty shocked, too. I'm just more disappointed because I wanted to be the first jerk that said I changed my mind. Yeah, my internet went out.
Did you change your mind on the episode? Because I was undecided coming in.
I was leaning towards calling it a best games period for the last few days. I mean, last week even, when we were supposed to record. Just because I didn't play it again, but I watched another playthrough and watched read some reviews or articles on it that it came out well after the game had initially came out. Mm-hmm. And I realized I was turned off, unfairly so, by just how every gaming website was like, this thing is the greatest thing that's ever happened to gaming, and if you don't play and love this game and call it your game of the year, then you want to decapitate your grandma type of stuff. I mean, that kind of turned me off. It did. So
to be fair, 2013 was such a fantastic year for games.
It was, yeah.
I don't know if I would say Gone Home was game of the year.
Oh, I definitely still wouldn't say that.
It's definitely still, I think, a best games period. Yeah. I think it's something I will never regret having played, and I feel like everyone should play it.
Yeah, and that's
absolutely
one of my criteria for deciding those things.
I mean, part of the reason I wanted Coley to play it and to be on the show was just to get that kind of perspective, because I think this is a game that can appeal to people that don't play games as often, and people that maybe aren't as interested in science fiction or fantasy or genres that video games typically tread in. And I wanted her opinion. So as somebody that doesn't play video games, what would you say? Like, is this something, you don't have to say if it's a best game period, but like, is this something that you would recommend other people play even if they don't play video games? Because like, my dad is getting a PlayStation 4 at some point, and this might be a game that I would say he should try.
I think it's very well done. I think that from a non-gamer standpoint, like, it looks good, the house is good, the things you can explore are good. the ending the thing that keeps going through my mind is I feel like it was an episode of Dr. Phil. Like, through the whole thing, he's saying, no, listen, so through the whole thing, he's saying, you know, coming up, we're going to show you this, and coming up, we're going to show you that, and after this break, I'm going to put a verb in my sentence, and we're going to do something. But he never gets to the point. Like, you never get...
Yeah.
There's never a resolution. Like, you just see people's lives unfold, and then he's like, okay, end of the show. And he never actually fixes anything.
It takes a full week of watching Dr. Phil now to see any sort of resolution, which never even happens to begin with. I only know this because my mom... Full disclosure, but
right. I mean, we don't have cable. I haven't watched it in a million years, but I just remember that feeling of like, okay, so I'm gonna find out how he's gonna do something for this family, and you don't find out anything. So the same thing. I'm playing along, and I think it's gonna go this way or that way, and I'm very into mysteries and figuring things out, and I like clues, and I like my thing is figuring things out.
Yeah.
And so that storyline of Lonnie and Sam was not a shock to me, was not a surprise.
Yeah.
So I was just completely let down by the end of it. Like, I was just like, really? Like, I could have told you that was going to happen. That's not...
Yeah, at the end, she was like, I want those last 2 hours of my life back.
And I still stand by that.
Which was kind of our first reactions as well.
I fully appreciate Fullbright tackling the LGBT, whatever the other letter is, thing. But
Q.
Thank you. Which makes me totally sound homophobic, but I'm not. But to me, that just was not a big deal. That was just what I thought was part of a tidbit of the story. Like,
right, and I didn't know if it wasn't a big deal to me because of the job that I do, and I work with majority LGBTQ, so it doesn't faze me. That's my day-to-day life. So I didn't know if that's why. I don't think so. Like, oh yeah, whatever, you know. But it just, okay, so you ran away with her. It didn't need to be this drama and this note on the door and don't come find us and, you know.
Yeah, but
yeah, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, what I wanted to happen at the end of the game was for Katie to be like, "Oh heck no!" and go after them because her younger little sister just ran off with some stranger she doesn't know. Some stranger Katie doesn't
regardless
know.
What if Katie really talked like that? Oh heck no.
Oh hell no.
This is not gonna happen. I can't let my sister run off with her.
Regardless of who she ran off with, it could have been some dude, and yes, it would have been like,
right.
I'm hunting these motherfuckers down and I'm bringing that bitch home. I mean, that's kind of what
that would have completely undercut the entire game if, like, after an hour or two of silence, the only words that Katie says are, "Oh heck no!" And she runs off after them.
all right.
Oh, that would have been great. That would have been great. Also terrible, but...
we need a Steam mod, Jack. Get on that. But no, the game should be appreciated, and it should certainly be respected for what it is.
Well, I just want to say this was a fun episode.
It was a weird episode. I quite didn't expect to be 3-0 on this.
I know.
3.5, I guess, if you count you, Daniel.
Oh. Well, you know, Jeremy.
Daniel.
Jack.
Coley.
Coley. Thank you all for joining me tonight for this episode of The Best Games Period. And thank you, good listeners, for sticking with us and listening to The Best Games Period as well. If you enjoy The Best Games Period, please let us know. We would love comments and reviews on iTunes, and you can find the show on there and on SoundCloud, as well as Game Informer and Extra Life, where we post it every Monday. And occasionally we put some stuff on our YouTube page. Jack, can you tell everybody a little bit more about Extra Life, please? Yeah, I am always happy to tell more people about Extra Life. And if you don't know anything about Extra Life, you know how people do charity walkathons or run marathons for charity? Well, not everyone likes doing those. But you know what everyone does like? They like playing games. And Extra Life is basically those things, but for games. So you get your friends, your family, your strangers to donate money to you,
and you participate in a 24-hour video game marathon. This year, I believe it's November 5th? Oh, gosh.
It's in the fall.
I can't remember. It's in the fall. It's a few months away. You can look it up over at extra-life.org and find out more about it. Find the correct day that I can't remember right now.
Jack's going to fix that in post.
Go to extra-life.org. You can get signed up, and then you can send out messages to your friends and family, get them to donate to you.
And your strangers.
It's all tax deductible. 100% of everything you raise goes directly to the Children's Miracle Network hospital of your choice, and 100% of it goes there. So nothing's shaved off the top for like administrative fees or anything like that. So
Nope.
You can play games and you can help kids at the same time. So really, it's a win and a win. And you also have the excuse to play games for a really long time, sometime in the fall, which I would say is a third win.
You could play Gone Home 12 times.
I beat Gone Home in under an hour, so you could maybe even play it 24 times.
Wow, that's got to be a good.
I mean, you could beat Gone Home in like 5 minutes if you know where you're going. So you could beat Gone Home so many times it's not even funny.
I love how we call it the best games period, and we're still railing on it. That's what makes this game such an enigma. Seriously.
I mean, I don't think it's railing on it.
well,
Like, if
we're
you
not
know
No,
what
but
to
we're
do-
laughing at. We're having fun with it.
Oh yeah, we do have fun.
We have fun here at Best Games Period headquarters. All right. Thank you for listening to episode 30 of the Best Games Period. Next week,
Why'd you ask it like a question?
Because I couldn't remember. Thank you for listening to episode 30 of the Best Games Period. Tune in next week for what should be another fascinating episode, thought-provoking episode, and hopefully an entertaining episode. All right, I'm Daniel Jones with Jeremy Brown and Jack Gardner, and my beautiful wife, Coley Jones, signing off.
Spoiler alert, I will not change my mind next week.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of games we've gone over, BioShock is definitely...
I feel like it's the biggest shoe-in.
It's
of all
literally in
shoo-ins.
my top 5. So.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be very busy
did-
this week, and I don't have time to research, so you know what?
We did call it our best game of the generation.
Yeah. I mean, there is that.
Out of default.